We are now less than 7 days from Election Day, and of course people have been voting, they've been casting their ballots, and they've been seeing Rudy Salas all over TV, lots of ads, and now we have him here in studio. So Rudy, what does this last week look like for you as far as your campaign trail is considered?
Yeah, this last week is all about reaching voters. You know, we're continuing to knock on doors, we're reaching them on the phone, by postcards, at community events. I've done a number of trunk or treats this week, just talking to a lot of constituents and people just really just reaching out to them, letting them know how important this election is, what it means for their family, for their kids, and for our future. And so we've been reaching them everywhere we can. We've knocked on over 220,000 doors. We've made over 1 million phone calls into the district, and it's really about just connecting with every eligible voter that we can.
And I know that's also always interesting because of the size of this district, and it stretches all the way up through a few counties. We're here in Bakersfield now. You were talking about being in Delano over the weekend, I believe, and then also, of course, you got to go all the way up to those other counties too. How do you keep that, I guess, line going of just making sure that you're hitting all the targets and all the bases, because it's not just one easy square?
Yeah, that's correct. So it's 3 counties. It covers 3 counties: Kings, Tulare, and Kern. And so, you know, it's not untypical for me to be in 3, 4, 5 cities in a day, or 5 communities. You know, it's just what we do. It's what people have come to expect from me. I tell people that still the biggest compliment I get is no matter where I go in the district, even if it's a small community, people are like, "Rudy, oh, you're one of us. You're always here. You're either giving out a backpack or collecting school supplies or doing a workshop." Like, you know, people say like, "Rudy, because you're here so much, you're a part of us." And that's probably one of the biggest compliments. But yes, it's a big district. We'll continue to keep traveling throughout the district, letting voters know how important November 5th is, to make sure they get their vote by mail ballots in, put those in the mail before, drop them off at the elections office or an elections drop box. But it's really about making sure people get out and vote.
And this is a rematch of 2022. You've seen your opponent before several times. You've both been on the same debate stage. We've done interviews here to get everyone out and being able to see the two of you. What has changed between the 2022 midterm and then 2022 now that we're just 1 week out, you've had this whole campaign cycle?
Yeah, we know that last cycle in 2022 was a historic low turnout, voter turnout here in this district. We're hoping 2024, with all the enthusiasm, that we get a historic high for 2024 in terms of voter turnout. We're doing everything that we can to reach every eligible voter. We're knocking on those doors, making those phone calls, meeting them out in the community, letting them know that whatever you care about is on the ballot. And so whether it's educational opportunities, bringing our own tax dollars back in, protecting Social Security, making medicine more affordable, like all of those things are on the ballot, and how important it is just for them to go out and vote.
Now, the two of you both have records of bringing funding back into the district. I know that he still wanted to hit at you yesterday. We talked to him. He was talking about the infrastructure bill and your criticism of his no vote on the infrastructure bill. He went and pointed to a bunch of different projects that have funded the district. What's your response to that? He said that he didn't like what wasn't in there as far as permitting is concerned, and also just overall spending. What would your vote have been on infrastructure, and what would your role look like as far as bringing in infrastructure funding be if you are elected?
Yeah, first off, I would have voted for the infrastructure bill that would have brought taxpayer dollars back into the Central Valley and brought jobs back in. David Valadao voted against that measure. I tell people he'll talk about things like water infrastructure or bringing infrastructure back, but when he has an opportunity to vote on a historic piece of legislation to bring in millions of dollars to the Central Valley and to put people to work, he voted no. Right? David's got a record of voting no and against the Central Valley. He did that even with healthcare. Like, healthcare and costs continue to be a big thing. David voted against capping the price of insulin at $35 for seniors, knowing like we have some of the largest diabetic rates, not just in the state, but in the entire country. Right? If I was in Congress, I would have definitely voted to cap the price at $35, but I think it should apply to all Americans, to all Central Valley families, not just seniors, for instance. But we need to make sure that we're doing more to reinvest in. And throughout the years, you guys have seen me here locally bringing in hundreds of millions of dollars, over $100 million to the CSU, over $100 million to the community colleges, focusing on things like graduating more nurses, an energy innovation center, putting in fire and police stations, 911 dispatch centers, a pedestrian bridge for kids to get to and from school safely. Like, those are real projects that mean real things to people here in our community. And so, you know, when David criticizes me for bringing in taxpayer taxpayer dollars. I just criticize him for voting against all that money coming back into the district and providing jobs.
Right, and then another thing that he criticizes you on too, and I want to hear your response on it too, is he says 450 missed votes. He talks about it in the campaign ad. He talks about it, of course, in the interview that we had yesterday. What's your response to your time in the state legislature and some missed votes?
Yeah, I've cast tens of thousands of votes. I'm a very effective legislator. That's why I've been so effective at bringing money back in, bringing in like $10 million for the Cancer Research Center, developing a Valley Fever Institute here, funding for our 911 dispatch centers, bringing in more fire trucks, for instance. But those are the things like David wants to talk about a small thing because, when you negotiate with somebody, you allow them the opportunity to actually fix their legislation. And when you do that, you develop relationships so that you can be a more effective legislator. And that's why I've been so successful in bringing in our taxpayer dollars back in and changing people's lives. When I was at the nursing graduation, for instance, the director there tells me, like, we're going to double the graduating size of the nurses for the next 10 years, Rudy, because of what you've been able to do, right? And so this is all about being able to work with people, allow them to fix their legislation, and then vote on the final form that actually does something for Central Valley families.
And I know when you talk about working across the aisle and working with folks, I know one of the things that could possibly happen from this election cycle is you could win, but a bunch of other Republicans can win too. They can keep the House majority. How do you see yourself working in Washington if the numbers aren't necessarily on the Democrat side as far as a House majority?
Yeah, I've always told people I'm willing to work with anybody as long as it helps Central Valley families. And I'm also willing to stand up to anybody. Right, my time in the state legislature, almost all of the legislation I've done has been in a bipartisan fashion, Republicans, Democrats, Independents on board, because it's the right thing to do for the Central Valley. But I'm also somebody willing to stand up to his own party, like I did when I voted no on the gas tax and got punished for it. I took those hits, but that's fine. I still have people coming up to me this day, shaking my hand and giving me a hug just for saying, like, Rudy, thank you for standing up for us. And I'll continue to do that. So whether it's a Republican administration, a Democratic administration, or Republican majority or Democratic majority, if you focus on people and on families, I'm willing to work with anybody if it helps Central Valley families.
There have been some concerns, of course, from Californians, especially here in this area, about necessarily gas prices and the potential that the state has to raise those costs through legislation. Of course, there was this recent special session through the state assembly initially, then the state Senate catching on, all under the orders from Governor Gavin Newsom about refinery reform. And there were the House Republicans from California that were signing a letter of concern. There were 12 of them. Representative Valadao was one of them. And then, of course, we saw another subsequent letter from the governors of Arizona and Nevada. Nevada's governor a Republican, but Arizona's a Democrat, Katie Hobbs. Is this something that if you were in Congress and we see this legislation brought up again next year, that you would consider signing on to a letter like that with a bunch of Republicans?
Well, not only that, I've actually taken the hard vote. I voted no. I voted against the gas tax, got punished for it. Mr. Valadao will sign letters, but I think it's more definitive when you actually vote no on this legislation. That's what I've done. Right now, Congressman Harder has a proposal to actually help lower the gas taxes, tackle some of the issues that you're talking about, and I'm very supportive of Congressman Harder's proposal.
And as far as working through the Central Valley is concerned, and what do you make of the allyship? Because I know Representative Valadao, Jim Costa, they're at opposite parties. There's lots of people through the Central Valley that have continuously won races over the years. How would you see yourself as a team player as far as the Central Valley is concerned in promoting legislation in D.C. that's beneficial to the whole region?
I'm for Central Valley families. I'll work with Democrats or Republicans throughout the entire district. So whether it's Congressman Harder, Jim Costa, or even here with Vince Fong, like, as long as you're focusing on people and doing the right thing for people, I'm happy to work with anybody. But if you're interested in being on a political soapbox, that's not really where I want to go. I'd rather roll up my sleeves, get something done for the American people, get things done for Central Valley families. That's what I've proven and I've shown, and I want to continue to do that. And hopefully, if I'm elected on November 5th, do that in Congress.
And my last question for you, I know the economy is tough for a lot of people, and they see, they have a Republican representative in this district, but they have Democratic senators and a Democratic president. What's the message to get people to go out to vote and benefit from an economy that I imagine that you want to bring to the Central Valley as well? Because they just look at rising costs. They look at, no matter who they vote for, Democrat in the Senate, Republican in the district, or the reverse of that, it's going to be the same situation. What's your response, and how do you get those people out?
I tell people we need an economy that works for everybody. We need an economy that works for Central Valley families. We need somebody that's going to stand up for them, that's actually helping lower prices. So in my time during the state legislature, I voted to lower the price of medicine, for instance, because healthcare costs continue to be like one of the biggest issues people talk to me when going door to door and on the phone. And people come up to me at the grocery stores and talk to me about this. But, you know, and I just compare that with David Valadao's record, where he voted against capping the price of insulin at $35 for people with diabetes, knowing we have some of the largest rates. David Valadao's vote to increase taxes on homeowners here in the state of California. David Valadao's vote to take away the Affordable Care Act 32 times. You know, when you look at these different prices, you got to look at like, well, who's actually not just saying something, but who's actually doing something about it. And when I show them my record of how we're trying to lower prices, my no vote on the gas tax, for instance, which was highly publicized throughout the entire country, here locally, tremendously, and throughout the state. But it's like, who's actually taking those votes is actually helping your family? Who's actually providing those opportunities for you to put more food on that table, making your paycheck a little bit bigger and more opportunities for your kids? You know, I've been able to do that, and I'll continue to do that in Congress.
Well, thank you so much for coming in. I know that these final few days and you're looking at this schedule. I know you're probably looking at the travel schedule too, driving up and down the map in this district. So we appreciate you taking some of your time today and giving it to us. Thank you so much again.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.